Malaysia has voted, and I wish to extend my heartiest congratulations to the winning coalition. It is my hope that the government machinery that you form can take her to greater heights and bring economic prosperity to as many Malaysians as possible. Here are my 5 wish lists that I hope both the government as well as the private sector can help to implement and bring Malaysia back to its glory days, the Asian Tiger days. Wish list number 1, and it is actually the lowering of the corporate tax rate and the widening of the tax base. So I'll start off with the lowering of the corporate tax. This is a chart showing the average tax rates, corporate tax rates across the Asian countries. And what you can see on average in ASEAN, it is actually about 22%. Singapore is the lowest at 17, and it has worked wonders by bringing a lot of foreign direct investment to the country. A lot of multinational corporations have set up regional centers in Singapore, and one of the reasons they do that is because of the corporate tax rate that is extended to them. Malaysia is still quite high, still not as high as the Philippines though at 30%, but I think it can be done if we widen our tax base. Now, what do I mean by widening our tax base? In 2018, the GST was abolished due to popular demand, change of government, and because of that, it narrowed the tax base because not many Malaysians actually pay income tax, and because of that, the government rely very heavily on Petronas and also the corporate tax rates to actually replenish the government coffers. And it's actually narrowed even further when you abolish the GST, because GST is essentially a consumption tax, and it has a very wide tax base because the more you consume, the more you pay, which is a fairer system, very similar to the VAT system that has been successfully and sustainably implemented in many developed countries. So I really do hope that this can be brought back, because the government needs money. Yes, obviously there is a debate of whether there's corruption, there's leakages, but more importantly, if you don't bring in the revenue first, there's not even enough to go around to actually develop the country. So wish number 1, lower the corporate tax, widen the tax base. My second wish as an investor is that the government formulates the right policies and cultivate a right business environment to encourage more FDIs to come into the country. Look at Singapore. Look at the chart here. The closest guy is actually Indonesia, and that's not even like 1/5 of what Singapore brought in. Singapore brought in 90 billion even in 2020, a pandemic year. Indonesia is second, 18 billion. Malaysia is languishing between the 5th and the 6th place. It's even lost out to the Philippines. Philippines is bringing in about 6.5 billion in 2020, but Malaysia only brought in 3.5. So unless and until we get our act together, more money is going to pour within the region, but not us. Even though we are geographically blessed, we don't have much natural disasters. Philippines has typhoons every year. And we have a very multilingual, very strong workforce, and yet we are being bypassed in terms of FDI. So guys, please, let's do something about this. Third on my wish list is something close to my heart, coming from a family of educators, and my sister and my dad are still, educating people, is actually elevating our education system. Malaysia ranks 47, 48 in terms of evaluation, in terms of PISA score. The top slots are going to Singapore, Japan, and South Korea, and even Vietnam. Vietnam used to languish behind us, and here we are. We are languishing behind them today. That's not the best part. The best part is that we are still looking down upon TVET education, technical vocational education and training, and see it as probably second or even third class. So for those who are academically not inclined, you are not even giving them enough recognition and also priority in terms of spending to help improve TVET, to encourage more people that it's not bad. Not everyone is academically inclined, and if you go to developed countries like Australia, shortage of skilled people, skilled plumbers, skilled carpenters, make it in such high demand that they are actually better paid than engineers, better paid than doctors in certain instances in Australia. And here we are froning even our own parents, Malaysian society. We look down on TVET education, and yet more developed countries like Germany, like Europe, they actually look upon and recognize TVET in a very different light. So my hope is this is not just the government; it's also our society's perception towards TVET graduates, and also last but not least is actually the soft skills that are not being taught in schools, and where have we gone in terms of highlighting the need for curricular activities to actually develop all these soft skills to ready our labor force for the market. So my third wish, let's really buck up on our education system. My fourth wish, and this is more towards private companies and entities within Malaysia rather than the government, is actually, can we actually pay our graduates better? You look at the entry level salaries, and this is something from Job Street. Entry level salaries for any professional has not changed much over the past 20, 30 years. I mean, when I graduated about 16 years ago and started my career, the pay has not changed. And this is 2022. We're talking about 16 years later. And if you compare a fresh graduate probably 20 years before me, which was probably in the early 1990s, they were paid as an engineer probably 1,005 to 1,008. So it's really not changed much, and inflation has eaten up so much of the spending power for most Malaysians, and yet we find that this is the median salary that we are paying our professionals. Related to this, even if they progress through the ranks and become a junior executive, senior executive, how much are our Malaysian SMEs actually spending on developing and training the workforce? We can't just rely on the government. The education doesn't stop at university level, but here we are as sometimes as employers or as leaders of businesses, we're complaining that we can't get good talent. Yet at the same time, on the other side, how much are we spending to actually groom them, to give them the right tools and right resources to actually grow? And why I feel sad is because now with me being a trainer in other aspects rather than just investing, I actually train multinationals. At the same time, I also train SMEs, larger SMEs. I find development spending one thing lah. And I really do hope that, you know, we as Malaysians don't just complain about not getting the right people, but ask ourselves, are we actually spending to encourage them to grow and to develop as well? So my challenge, number 4, is not to the government, but to the private sector. My fifth wish, and this is something closer towards the investment and finance community, is how vibrant is our startup, our venture capital industry. If you look at banks, a lot of them are still financing very, what I call traditional assets, housing loan, properties, land, something easier to value, something that they know that they can control the risk very well because of liquidation if in case of a delinquent loan. But we are not seeing the same vibrancy going into private equity, venture capital, and even though we do see some, but not at the level of a developed country yet. And why I really wish that this can change, and it may be a government-private initiative collaboratively, or the private sector taking up a little bit more risks, train their people to have a better understanding of evaluating business risks, and giving the capital where it's really needed to the small guy who has the idea, who has the tenacity to actually make a good business, to actually help grow Malaysia's economy. And you know, so many business ideas actually die because the lack of capital access that they have. We have our securities exchange, our listing exchange, creating this board called LEAP. And yet the requirements for listing, it stands for Leading Entrepreneurs Accelerator Platform. But such strict requirements that these requirements are very similar to a company to list on the ACE board. Then where does that leave the guy who may not be profitable now, who probably needs funding to mature his prototype, mature his business idea? That is seen wanting again. And My last point about this is that if you see the space that the venture capitalists and private equity guys are investing in Malaysia, medical, information, financial services, wholesale, what is sorely missing is agriculture. Look at Holland. Even though they may be a very developed country, one of the largest seafaring nations in the past, and even though they have a very small land area today, but they are one of the world's top agriculture producers. Here we are in Malaysia, blessed with ample land, blessed with good weather, not much natural disasters apart from floods. And yet, we're not seeing money pouring into revitalizing the agriculture industry. And it saddens me. I mean, my grandparents used to be in the agriculture sector. Obviously, now my parents and us, we moved towards the city. There's no incentive for a lot of people to start the agriculture business. And I think that's something that is severely lacking even in the venture capital and private equity space. So my last wish, guys, look at interesting agriculture companies, especially those private equity guys. There you go, my 5 wish list as an investor in Malaysia. And as a Malaysian citizen, I do hope for this country to grow, to prosper, to have bountiful economic opportunities for our future generations as well. My children's generation, their children's generation. If this video has brought value to you and you can help do a small part in elevating our investing community mindset, as well as the layman, even if you're not an investor, subscribe to this video, give it a like, and do hit that notification bell so that when new videos are out about growth, about entrepreneurship, about investing, you will be notified. See you guys in the next video.